Before you ever decide what somebody's psychology, psychiatry is, before you ever decide what their medical status is, or what any condition is in the human body, before you ever make a decision about someone's thoughts or their beliefs, or what kind of person they are, their character and whole, before you make any judgments about that, it's pretty critical to not misunderstand that we have a problem with one little phrase, okay? And that's called alternative conditions, okay? And alternative conditions mean that it appears that people are bad. You want everyone to think that someone is bad nowadays. You always want to point your finger and say someone's bad. Well, look at the way the world operates, okay? Let's think about this for a minute. Before you judge and say anyone's bad, do you ever ask yourself what the root causes of someone's behavior is? Do you really know what that is? Before you make a judgment, does someone have the right to be bad? Like, when a police officer shoots someone, they have a right to kill, don't they? Well, any person should also know that the law is of equality. Okay, you can't have more rights than me and call yourself a psychiatrist. Okay, you can't say that you're better than me and call yourself a doctor, or a lawyer, or a judge. Because if we have the same education and the same experiences and we understand the same thing, then the truth is, who is it that is bad? Who is it that is good? Who is well? Who is not well? Why? We have to have a thing called measurement. And when we use our brains and our bodies to measure things, and we find out that these are conditions that are good, bad, and somewhere in between, we learn about what life's actually doing. We hypothesize an entire theory throughout our lives. This theory is simply nothing but a lot of conditions and little functions and mechanisms and ideas and concepts and everything that we do as a human existence. So what is human existence? Human existence is bad. It's not good. There was nothing ever really good about human existence. Okay? And so the question would be next to that is, how do we make it good? How do we make a good human existence? There's a lot you have to do to make a good human existence. Okay? A good human existence is all about, like, being in a place and time where everything has to work. Okay? If it doesn't work, if there's a disadvantage, or someone's taking their unfair advantage, or if someone's doing something illegal, or if someone's committing a crime against you, or if someone's trying to power play on you, or flex a whole lot, or if someone thinks they're better than you, or they treat you unfairly, okay, you end up down this road where people can become your enemy. Okay? People can become your enemy. And when they do, it's because they chose to become your enemy. Okay? They want to be your enemy because they fear you. They want, to see a good thing that only they can have and they can hold it in their hands. And while they're afraid that you are a threat, and you'll try to take something away from them because they see every day that the world and humans are bad. Because they can't conceive what they're entitled to be and what they're entitled to do and how they're entitled to think and how they're entitled to exist. Okay, it's simple. The concept of everything comes from geometry. It's the root of all theories. Geometry. Sorry, this is all you're going to get. Okay? Now, when you take geometry and relate it to every other thing in the world, it will build you. It will build you time. It will build a frame of reference. It will build everything that exists. It's called geometry. Okay? Most people don't want to believe that this is real. Like, how many times I've asked a person what they thought about geometry. They're like, geometry? What's that have to do with anything? What? What do you mean you don't understand that your existence is geometrical? I just couldn't fathom how someone could ignore geometry so well, because society basically instilled them to ignore geometry. And I woke up one day and I said, this is all about geometry. And the world is not teaching anyone that geometry is a valid subject. It is every part of everything. Okay? And if you conceptualize it enough, you can use it as a tool to predict everything that will ever exist. It's called the God equation of geometry. It'll just tell you any and everything that you want to know. You will be able to sequence it on a computer, and you can sequence words like this too. Phrases of like probabilities. You know what a probability is? We can probability sequence anything, you know, as a false prediction. Computers cannot always tell you the truth, though. Sometimes randomness is the killer in the future or the past or whenever, since we're not sure that there always is a past or there always is a future. Okay? So, like, you might try to think that this is going south here, but geometry and how we are as human beings, and these doctors and everybody making judgments about what's good, what's bad, who's good, who has this judgment, who has this, blah, blah, blah. What condition is this? You need evidence to support your claim. Without that geometrical evidence to support your claim, let's stop finding alternative context to describe a different circumstance. Okay? Someone can be angry for a reason. Okay? They're entitled to be angry. Okay? They can take it out on people who have forced them illegally. Just like a police officer would, a civilian will also have the right to stand their ground. They'll also have the right to fight people. Okay? Stop trying to make excuses and call people psychopaths because they're retaliating against a corrupt regime. Okay? You can't force a human being to do the labor of a machine. We are not machines. Don't try to say that we are. We are not someone who has to fall victim to this program that we develop here in the world. Okay? We don't have to fall victim to the artificial intelligence. You can't compete with it. It calculates much faster than you do. You don't have to fall victim to this derogatory future that I think is coming and it's been developing, where everyone is like, oh, you're bad, I love my computer. Oh, you're bad, humans are going to go extinct because of the doctors. They want to try to assuage the human race, but a lot of them are leading you into a technology. It's kind of a bit of a war. It's like, how do we understand that we're becoming glued into a world, stuck on the fly tape, so to speak, where we're stuck in this world of doing things a certain way that becomes so harmful to our ways of thinking and our environment. I mean, I'm pretty sure we now know that the world is extremely polluted. The water is polluted, the ocean is polluted, the air is extremely toxic. You're dealing with something that isn't that clean anymore. The world has polluted itself. It's naturally toxic anyway. The world is, a human being cannot live in nature. You think that you can live in nature? Not like an animal. Go ahead, try to live in nature like an animal and see what happens to you. You ever seen that show, Naked and Afraid? That's pretty nasty. There's a lot of problems that humans face in reality. You're actually a pretty weak creature. You don't even compete with the animal kingdom. Animals got a leg up on you. I mean, they're flashing the goods. They can actually live in nature. They don't require all this industrial poison and these doctors to run around acting foolish, trying to say everyone's bad just because they hurt someone who was corrupt. Now, ask yourself, should we hurt people? No, not for just any reason. No, you should not. No, it's a last resort to hurt someone. But sometimes there are people in this world, they're trying to harm me, you, and everybody, and they may need to be hurt. Some people have to be hurt. They're so corrupt that they don't understand they have to be hurt. And if they're not hurt, oftentimes they also have to go to prison. And it's because they're robbing people of their hard-working money. And it's not good. So never let anyone lie to you or make you feel like you're a bad person just because you made some simple mistakes, or just because you're trying to live and everybody wants to try to diagnose somebody. You don't have to live under the multiple reoccurring charges of a diagnosis. So one thing to do is to not participate in the internet. You don't have to live a life based on what some mismeasuring doctor says. Okay, you don't know how many times I met a doctor, and you know what they did? They gave me a diagnosis without measuring a single thing. Like, yep, here's your diagnosis. Merry Christmas, you can have this. I award it to you. No, I don't want your damn diagnosis. I'm afraid not. Okay, I'm sorry. Your diagnostic skills, doctor, are horrible. You do not know how to diagnose because you do not use geometry. Back when I was talking about geometry, you do not know how to measure the human body. And, just because we have psychological errors does not mean that we always, depends on the error usually, but does not mean we always are so psychologically erroneous that it's inconceivable to think that we're just, it depends on the errors. It really does. Like, certain people have serious errors that you can diagnose just by talking to them or learning about some of their ideas and concepts of their mind. This is called the science of psychology. Like, you can diagnose a psychopath because a psychopath does not know anything about guilt. A psychopath does not ever stop doing things that are guilty. They have no sign of guilt. They don't know. Or sometimes you have some people that don't understand what a sociopath does. Sociopath is trying to assuage the herd into believing something about one particular person or an entity, or sociopaths are always also trying to create a scenario in the social agenda. They're very socially minded with others. They're always trying to convince somebody of something. And they're always out there to try to be in a popularity contest. Sociopaths are extremely dangerous people too, because they are going to lead a whole large mass of people to believe something that might be so wrong that it's not funny. And you're seeing that in today's world. People are arguing about what the sociopathic agenda has done to the world already. Okay? Ask yourself, what should I do with my life? What is the most responsible thing that I can do with my life? Like, what is the best way to live? What is the most honest way to live? You know, hard work, living recyclably with nature, honestly, almost like an Indian or an Amish or something like that. You know, you're not supposed to live in this industrial complex and just think that it's supposed to be easy with the plasticated food items every day and the infinite amounts of recycling pollution, and then the never-ending use of fossil fuels and never-ending use of burning things. And I'm pretty sure that gets out of control at some point. I'm pretty sure that's very psychopathic. I'm pretty sure it's definitely not. If it's not psychopathic, it's definitely sociopathic. Someone has tricked you into believing that you have to be dependent on a way of life that you just need to learn honestly to be better. I mean, technology, what is it really doing for you? What's the end product on technology? You know, what are the reasons that we're getting illness? Do the research into the root causes, first of all. What they claim, okay? This is what they claim the causes are. Now, could there be an alternative? This is what I spoke in the beginning of this video. Alternative reasons. Like, your teeth are crooked because of DNA. Or maybe your teeth are crooked because you had an infection. Or maybe your teeth are crooked because a random mutation occurred. Or maybe your teeth are crooked because someone punched you in the mouth as a child and you didn't know it. Or maybe your teeth are crooked because they injected a needle into your bones that caused them to deform your skull. Or maybe, how many alternatives are there, doctor? How many ways can you decide what the alternative actually is? You know, sometimes there are less alternatives, sometimes there are a lot of alternatives. Okay? There are many reasons for things. And medicine, when it moves through your body, it goes to all different parts of your body in certain areas. But it does have pathways. It may have receptors, but it has multiple receptors and multiple pathways. Medicine is not an accurate science. There's nothing accurate about it. It's really not that whole lot of an accurate study about psychology or psychiatry either. They claim to understand neurotransmitters, but we have never seen a neurotransmitter flowing through the brain of a living human. Never have we. Neurotransmitter, what? Where'd you see this at? You picked this up out of a dead skull somewhere laying in a petri dish? I don't think so. It doesn't work that way. We don't understand neurotransmitters. We don't understand that they even are transmitters. We don't even know what they do or how they work or what frequencies they have or any part of this. Just trust me. You're not going to get away with not measuring the whole geometry of the circumstance. You're not going to get away with this to make these claims. Because you don't need to diagnose people with socio-psychopathic issues because everyone has the same diagnosis in this department. Everyone can become a psychopath. Everyone can become a sociopath. Push their buttons hard enough and long enough, and you're going to see a psychopath occur. It's not their responsibility. It's the people who push their buttons' responsibility to be called a psychopath. Actually, it's a sociopath pushing the buttons of a psychopath, which the psychopath was not a psychopath until the sociopath continuously pushed their buttons. You got to see who's at fault. Learn that in the law, if you're at fault, if you're the cause of something, it means that you are the cause of that action. That means that you induced force. You forced someone to do something, not because they chose to. No, you can choose another path if you're not being forced. But if you're forced, if someone is forcing you, then you're forced. You have no other alternative. Okay? Or if there was alternatives, it's extremely difficult and maybe sometimes unachievable. Or maybe there's some other alternatives that maybe are achievable, but they won't work. So ask yourself, who's being forced? Who's forcing and who's being forced in any condition, any time? The sociopaths want you to believe everything that they say, but they don't always, a lot of the time, have a lot of evidence to support their claims. You don't have to listen to someone who can't show you the geometrical vector evidence of what we know, the atomic world of particles, okay, in interaction. If they can't show you these atomic and subatomic particles in the form of geometrical records of their interaction as they actually occur, then you don't have to listen to anything that they directly say. You don't have to accept their diagnosis just because there are alternative reasons for everything. Okay, this is an alternative reason for people's anger. There's an alternative reason for hate. There's an alternative reason for violence. There's an alternative reason for a lot of things. We are entitled to these things because we don't have to accept corruption from the top down.